and as consistently as we can.
And in the perfecting of those applications, would the people who buy them have the opportunity to seek higher density, or will that be set at the time we reach an agreement with them?
Through the speaker, anyone would be entitled to seek any additional height or density, but I would think through the procurement process, we're going to be very clear about what we accept as appropriate, contextually appropriate development on these sites, taking into account all of the requirements in the city's official plan. So I'm not anticipating that we'll be getting into a second round seeking additional height and density.
So is it the intention, or could we put in provision to prevent that if it's something we don't want to happen, or we wouldn't share in any benefits from that? Would we want to, stratify the site or some such measure to ensure that the developer doesn't buy it, then go for increased density and we get no more affordable housing?
It's something that the council has done on occasion in the past, certainly through the business terms of any procurement. Those parameters can be negotiated. To date, we have not anticipated taking that extra step through the thinking that we've done to date on the proposals.
So at the moment, we don't foresee any concrete steps that the city would take to make sure that at the time they turn the process approved.
Again, to the speaker, other than terms that we may include in any business terms through the procurement of these sites, we have not put forward any specific steps to date.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To the, I think to the chief planner. First of all, I would like to know, these particular parcels of land and the proposals that come forward in respect of them, while still doing our due diligence. And
the report anticipates pre-zoning the site. So first of all, and very importantly, putting in place the zoning bylaw necessary to give certainty to the proponents is a really essential step in expediting the approval process. The proponents will know with a great level of certainty what they will be able to construct. And in that sense, you condense the period of negotiation. On the other hand, we are taking these through the normal planning process, and we'll be out consulting with communities, with local councillors to develop the zoning parameters for these sites. So we, as we conceived in the report, want to strike that appropriate balance between formally considered, while at the same time with dedicated staff, moving these through pre-zoning as quickly as we can.
that was excellent, because you gave me reassurance that there will be, even notwithstanding our expedition of these, no diminished opportunity for people in the communities to come be part of the consultative process for these particular parcels of land.
Yes, I agree with that. That's certainly the line that we typically try to stay on.
Okay, thank you. These questions probably go to somebody from the Affordable Housing Office, maybe Mr. Gadd, but whoever seems most appropriate. I just wondered if you could give the members of council and the public a general sense of the marketplace in this context. The marketplace meaning the nonprofit community and others, with respect to this layering on referred to earlier on, and sort of how far we can go without impairing what is meant to be a very open process that's meant to encourage what I would call a robust response. So it gives us an array of proposals to respond to select from, and just a little bit of a sense of the marketplace in that regard. As to how far you can go to be prescriptive without sort of causing us problems in terms of the response rate that we want to get for these parcels.
Through the chair, Mr. Mayor, we have had at the city 20 years of experience in the development of affordable housing, both nonprofit and private sector.
He said 20 years. That's why I'm suffering for the last 20 years. That motherfucker.
Private sector organizations building affordable housing for us. Generally, those have been under federal provincial programs. This particular initiative is kind of, if you will, a maiden Toronto approach. And we believe that we need sufficient flexibility to ensure that the proposals can come back to us, because this is $4.2 billion worth of construction activity, 13,000 jobs involved over the course of the construction of these buildings. And so I believe we need everybody in the boat, if you will, rowing forward on this initiative for it to be successful. So there's no one organization or no one sector that actually is capable of delivering this entire initiative. And particularly if this is the beginning of the Housing Now program, where we're looking to scale it up even further. So the report, we believe, strikes the right balance around the amount of flexibility staff needs to deliver the program in a timely way, and also to provide the approval so that we can actually get shovels in the ground.
Just one more question to you as well, through you, Madam Speaker, to Mr. Gadden. You were asked earlier on about this kind of layering on, and said that we obviously didn't yet have the actual documents that would issue, in effect, formally the proposals, the request for proposals on these pieces of land. You weren't in response to one particular request that was being made of you, rejecting the notion of us saying, for example, that we would give favorable consideration to proposals that had more affordable housing, or any one of a number of the different examples that have been discussed. You're not ruling out that we might say that. You're simply saying, as of this moment, I guess successful, that is something that could form a part of the terms of the requests for proposals that are put out there.
This guy's acting like if
Mr.
he's
Mayor,
in
through the
court.
chair,
He's
that's
contempt.
correct. We took the principles that council gave us that were adopted in December. We applied them to this report within the space of 4 weeks. And all of the team working on this initiative are interested in achieving as much affordable, as supportive, transitional, as much housing as possible for those people that are in the greatest need in the city.
Thank you.
Did he just say those people?
Thank you.
Really? Ignorant motherfucker, right?
Councillor Pasternak.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Through you to staff, normally in the course of development applications, when you add density, puts pressure on local infrastructure. This case is a little unusual. Who will be responsible for infrastructure, the cost of infrastructure upgrades, whether it be stormwater, sewage, recreational?
Through the speaker, as is the case with any development applications, all of the servicing requirements of each site will be evaluated. They will, of course, be in various states of readiness for development. So our various divisions involved in that process will review what is necessary. In some cases, in many cases, the development cost related to the infrastructure is on
What the
the
fuck are
developer.
this $40 billion,
So these
guys? Shut the
developments
fuck up.
have to include
Bill.
the capacity to improve that infrastructure. In some cases, rarer cases, the infrastructure includes improvements. The infrastructure needed includes improvements to regional infrastructure. And in that case, the city might contribute.
So in some cases, the private sector or the leasing will be taking up the cost of those infrastructure improvements. Other cases, it might be cost shared. Is that
Generally speaking, the cost will be on the development.
when it comes to the units themselves, the rental units, and I'm not sure whether this goes to Mr. Gadden, whether it's the planner, who owns title to those units over this period?
Through the chair, the proposal calls for the land to be leased for 99 years on the rental units, so the title would be owned by the city.
So the city would be the owner of these units.
Okay,
The
that's
city
called Crown Land, okay?
retains title.
That is
so
something that's
within
owned
99
by the
years,
treaty land. These are
land
some things
and
that
the
people want to
housing
stop people
reverts to
from.
the city.
This
During the
land is
period
not
of the
owned by
lease,
no city or
essentially,
anything. This is a charter right. Look it up.
leaseholder would
It's your charter
be
right.
either the nonprofit
It's not
or private
owned.
sector group.
Now, back to okay, thank you. So the city is the title holder of these units.
That's correct.
When it comes to planner, I guess you've seen the motion that came up through executive. Are you comfortable with the wording of that motion?
It's the motion that executive passed was for us to consider implications on commuter parking. we're certainly, as I indicated at executive committee, we would prioritize the development of the affordable housing over the production of commuter parking. The motion was to consider it through the procurement process, and we will consider it. But
This is more fun.
council's well aware of congestion.
I sacrificed my
One of the
health
best ways
for
to
you
do that
guys.
is to put less vehicles on the road. And I would think that we'll want to induce other ways for people to get to these transit stations rather than using parking in commuter parking lots.
Well, it seems that you've made up your mind. I bring to your attention a positive staff report for St. Lawrence Market North redevelopment, where there was a $15 million investment in parking in that $91 million development. Now, I realize you weren't the chief planner back then, but is there a double standard where tens of millions go into commuter parking in the downtown major infrastructure projects, but it's sort of looked down upon in the inner suburbs?
I would say, through the speaker generally, we're, through the official plan, we are trying to reduce commuter parking across the city. The idea of reducing vehicular travel is a consistent policy approach across the city. We'll look at opportunities and the travel demand management that's associated with every development. So in the case of the market, there may have been an ongoing need for some parking related to the market and the tourism that goes on in the market area.
I have very little time left. Very quickly, just north of the 50 Wilson Heights site, there's 55 acres of vacant Toronto land, district plan. The only thing there is the Shepherd West subway station. Is there any reason why that site was avoided, a site we've been trying to kickstart for many years, and pick a site where there's just going to be nothing but transportation over the next few years as commuters object to the proposal?
People, let's call your charter rate. Your land is being up for sale.
Madam Speaker, we're just getting.
Okay, that's your last question. Now we'll wait for the answer.
Stand up and fight for your land back. Trust me. They're trying to sell it.
Through the speaker, revised that site.
It's called a conservative
wasn't
government.
Available right
In
now.
Alberta,
to
they
be
do the
part of
same
this
thing.
tranche.
Ontario, we're
It certainly
tough.
would be considered in future
Fight.
opportunities to realize housing through this program.
Thank you. Councillor McKelvey?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My questions pertain to the RFP process. Is it thought that all 11 properties will go out for bid at once, or will this be a stage-gated approach?
Thank you for the question through the chair. They would go through a staged approach.
And so is there the possibility for learning from one RFP to the next and changing of the criteria, for example, for awarding?
Through the chair, definitely there's opportunities to tweak.
The city has done such an approach for development of property.
In this particular way, yes, absolutely.
It's interesting that you have $1 million that is set aside to develop a nonprofit capacity fund. I was wondering if you could give some examples of what that sort of fund could be used to encourage the nonprofit sector to bid in this process.
Through the chair, the fund is intended to supplement also what Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation makes available through a project development fund. But in particular, given this initiative,
Mom,
to build
this
capacity
asshole's the one who made you
within
couldn't get-
any of the particular bids as
See?
well. I will note as well,
That's
council
him.
has on
20
received
years.
a number of
Not helping people.
letters and pieces of correspondence.
And this
from
motherfucker's still talking.
housing organizations that have actually commented and supported that particular part of the initiative.
And how will you be advertising this opportunity to the nonprofit sector? Because they may not, for example, use Badingo or regular tools regularly.
Through the chair, we're already in communication with some of the sector organizations, and we'll be hosting a number of open houses for them to discuss the program. And also, actually, because we're still in the design of the RFP process or the offer.
Is there anything, the way this is set up, that would preclude TCHC from submitting proposals to this process?
Through the chair, absolutely not.
And then my last question, for the awarding of these, I guess I don't know what the proper word is, if it's a contract or or development, the ability to build and develop, I'm not sure the exact wording of that. I assume you're gonna have mandatory requirements, but then will there also be consideration, how will you consider like value added? Like, for example, employing local youth in construction or increasing the number of accessible units, et cetera? Like, how do you see weighting out mandatory versus value add through this process?
Through the chair, we have in our current evaluation process additional points that would be awarded to organizations that provided additional affordability. In the past, it's also resulted where there's been additional length of affordability, but no thanks, it's 99 years.
And
What does that have to do
so
with
you
jobs?
could have as a value add, for example, accessibility or local youth employment as things that you could get additional points for.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perks?
Thank you. I'm not sure who will answer it. I'm looking at the recommendations that we're actually being asked to vote on here. Recommendation 9 says there will be a maximum of 130 bid we'll look at. Now, I've heard that we're only doing these where we retain the land, and I'm confused. How does someone wind up owning a home on land that we own?
That's what I'm talking about.
Through the chair, in the details of the report, you will see that where condominium ownership is contemplated, that we
Government
would sell
or
the land.
private sector.
Oh, so we will be
Corporation,
considering
they
selling
think
up
they
to a
could buy
third of the land
our
on
land.
any of these sites for
Wow.
condominium. Exactly. Okay. In addition, recommendation number 21 says that there would be a system of dispersing proceeds from the sale or lease. So in some other circumstances,
lease,
does that apply only to the 1/3 where we sell for condominia, or is there other contemplation of sale?
No.
That's
No,
ready to
well,
move in, people.
Let me correct myself.
Build that
In a
condo,
number
we
of
move
the
in.
instances, there
Fully
may
furnished.
also be
I promise you.
retail or commercial uses, so it may apply there.
So just to really nail that down, in recommendation 25, it says that the market offering process will give a priority to retaining public ownership of lands. Nowhere in any recommendation that I can find does it say that there must be retention even for the rental units of public lands. Have I missed something in the recommendations?
Yeah, buddy.
Councillor Perks, through the chair, we have used the language that was approved at council in December in terms of the directions and the principles, but it is the intention to achieve affordable rental and market rental on leased lands.
I understand that that's the intention,
Yes.
but nowhere in here does it say that no bid will be accepted if the rental land.
You're reading it correctly.
So just to summarize, on any of the bids, up to 1/3 of the land could be sold off for condominium.
Knock it out.
And there is no guarantee that if all the bids come back and for the remaining 2/3 of the land, they want to purchase, we're merely giving a priority. We're not saying they must give us a 99-year lease.
I think what I'm suggesting to you, Councillor, is that we intend to make it a must, and we would not accept that bid if it does not include leased land.
So if we want to make sure that our intentions are met, we would have to amend these regulations to say so. Because currently they say give a priority to, not must be done. Is that correct?
Through the chair, you may wish to, but the staff's intention is that it be a requirement.
I understand that that's your intention, but your intentions are determined by what directions we give you. Is there a direction here that the land must remain in public ownership on the rental portion?
Current recommendation does not say.
Thank you.
Can I clap now?
Councillor Layton?
Madam Speaker, if I could have my position held, I had a question of the CFO. I believe she's trying to track that answer down for me,
Okay,
that I was gonna ask.
I'll hold it down. Councillor Wong-Tam?
Question. 1/3 condominium ownership, obviously that will be transferred into the hands of private ownership. 1/3 of the assorted lands will be market based rents. Is the intention for those lands to be transferred into the hands of private landlords?
The 1/3 affordable, through the chair, will be dependent upon who wins in the bidding process, whether it's private or nonprofit.
And the 1/3 that's market rent?
That's correct.
That is, so it could be that that the second 1/3 could also be in the hands of private ownership, is that correct? The ones that are purpose-built market rentals.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you very much.
And on the bidding process.
Yes, thank you. And because the language of the report encourages nonprofit and co-op sector involvement, but not a requirement, but I hear that in your answer to Councillor Perk's question is that that your intention is to change the language in the procurement, is that correct? Because how do we ensure that nonprofit sector co-op housing will participate in the bid process?
In response through the chair, I've not indicated that we're going to change the procurement process. The procurement process will be open to both private and nonprofit organizations. What we're looking at here is achieving the results of getting the housing built and it being made affordable for the residents that we're looking to house for essentially over a 99-year term. Who can do that will be dependent on who comes in and bids. I can't require the nonprofit housing sector to come in and bid on a site. That will be a decision that they'll have to make, and they'll have to make a business case that they can achieve that and get it done.
But this is getting to the root of the discussion right now, is that council can require through the procurement offering process that nonprofit sector, nonprofit housing sector, cooperative sector is required to be a part of any developer's bid to obtain the lands. You're saying that we can't do it because, for what reason? We're saying that we could amend the report to specifically get that result.
Amendments, rights,
Through the chair, to answer to your question, mandating a particular thing like that may indeed reduce the competitiveness of this process and result in bids not being made.
Is the outcome to, is
Okay,
the
who cares
outcome
about
to
your
ensure
bid from the
that we
charter
get
rights? Come on.
a for-profit condominium
Shit's
developer
not for sale.
to
It's
help
supposed to
build
be built for the next
the sites
generation.
out? Or is
This was a
the
monarch
objective
in
of the report to build
1986.
as many affordable housing units as
We'll talk to
possible
the Queen
so
about
we
this
can
one.
actually address the housing crisis before us?
Through the chair, the objective of the report is that there can be a business plan presented by an organization, whether it be nonprofit or private, on each of these sites that's achievable, regardless of whether nonprofit or private. And
How-
within
say
that
if it's
process, to
achievable,
achieve as
if.
much affordable housing as possible.
How could it be
So we
if
put a
the
cap
charter rights
on the
stop it from
maximum number
that
of
to be
condominium
achieved?
units.
So then
So
how
who is he
likely
trying to
is it
fucking
that the
brainwash?
nonprofit sector, by way of even putting $1 million aside to try to help them build their capacity, how likely is it that they're gonna come in and compete competitively with the for-profit wealth if we don't make it a requirement of their participation in the bid process?
Through the chair, with respect, there are a number of sites here, and there are smaller sites that relate to the capacity of the nonprofit sector to actually develop and deliver those projects that they likely will come in on. Some of the other sites may be beyond their capacity.
So that means that not every single site will have affordable units and deeply affordable units. If they are to be, if those smaller sites, the least desirable sites, the least valuable sites are going to be left for the nonprofit sector to compete for. The more profitable sites, the more desirable locations, the ones where we can actually get more density on there, will be left for the condominium for-profit developer. Is that the scenario that we're setting up by way of this report?
Worked very successfully with the private sector, and I expect that they will be involved, as they were in the West Don Lands as an example, to
So
provide
the same thing in
services to
Calgary,
those
Alberta. They're
residents
trying to
that
bring the same
are
shit
in the
here.
affordable units.
Stop them.
The shelter component of ODSP, I believe, is about $437, just for those who are on the ODSP recipients. How many of these units that we're proposing to build can someone on ODSP afford to rent?
Through the chair, the purpose of this report is occupations. This is not a program. that's
So I could pay
designed to
$50 for my
deeply
place, he's saying,
affordable
in a
housing at
condo.
the outset. Organizations that
let's
come in
ready to
and
just
bid on
move
this
in.
process that might have access and be able to achieve, we would actually provide greater points to those organizations that bring those sorts of benefits.
Thank you. Councillor Layton.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm going to ask a question of Mr. Gadden and then the CFO, and then I'll be back to Mr. Gadden again, just to, so that you're aware when you need to get up and sit down. Is it safe to say, Mr. Gadden, that the reason why we're not recommending a larger investment from the city, from cash, is that we don't have the capital available in our capital budget to build this housing ourselves? We're relying on the private sector to bring that capital. Is that fair to say?
Through the chair, other jurisdictions, and I'll quote, for instance, in British Columbia, where they have a $1.2 billion affordable
Conservative
housing
government,
fund,
man.
and the city of Vancouver has a $2 billion endowment fund, have made
I'm gonna tell you
decisions that are
something
different
here.
than the decisions that have been made in Ontario
There's schools
or even the city of
that they ripped
Toronto.
down,
So I'm
and they
operating
built
in the
houses that
whole
people could
program
not
is
afford.
designed around
So whatever he's
leveraging,
talking about is
the
bullshit, you
resources we have
understand?
other than going into the
Don't let me
city's
bite my
capital
words,
program.
people. Stand up
Other
and
than going
fight.
to the city's capital program,
Stop listening to the
like,
liars.
be honest,
They're
the
lawyers
space
together,
doesn't
working
exist
together.
within the
John
city
Tory
capital
signed his
program for investment
his
of this
deal
kind.
with the rest of the lawyers.
Unless
They have
it
backdoor
doesn't count
deals in
towards
City
that
Hall that
ceiling.
no one
And
knows
so I'd
about.
like
That's
to ask
supposed to
the
be open to the
CFO,
public.
can you
These are
explain
things
how
that's
we
on this
determine
video
what
on this shit.
fundable debt is
Look it
versus
up.
just regular debt?
Trust me. Stand and fight for
Through the
people's
chair,
right.
the period of time that the debt is outstanding. Regular debt is funded, the debt service costs pertaining to regular debt is funded from the taxes.
So if we have a revenue stream to offset the debt servicing costs, it's deemed refundable debt. Now, does refundable debt count towards our debt ceiling as of 2019?
Through the chair, as of 2019, debt pertaining, or debt that is considered refundable debt does not get included in our 15%.
So just to confirm, we additional debt above our debt ceiling if we identify a revenue source from that debt.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask some questions, growing on Councillor Bradford's question. Which numbers being determine what they need to get 80%, 20% under in this program? Which, is it the citywide average? Is it the central average, the east average, north average? Is it the GTA? Just need to know because there's line items on the
Yes.
the CMHC website that I just want to make clear.
Through the chair, CMHC, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, surveys the city every October in 17 different zones. The official plan has one average for the entire city by bedroom size. So 1, 2, 3 per bedroom.
So that doesn't include the
One
GTA
area.
region. We have a
gotta wonder what
subzone
area.
that is just adding together
Suburb?
central, east, west, and north and averaging those.
That's
So
correct.
there's and yet another tranche. So the neighborhoods do have zones though, and we know which neighborhoods that we've identified these projects are in, correct? We know.
Yeah, that's
looked them up. Have we compared what the average rents are in those zones with the city average? And have we determined how much of a reduction are we actually going to see from the average within that neighborhood and what will be built in that neighborhood?
Through the chair, we've not actually undertaken that exercise. At the same time, recognizing that you need a rent in order to pay for what you built. And so in that regard, we think the city average is an acceptable standard. And if council wishes to revisit that, it's within the official plan.
But is there a mechanism in the report as presented to say that hypothetically, if the rent in the neighborhood, if the neighborhood CMHC average was already 80% of the city average, could we demand that we go deeper?
Through the chair again, you need the rent in order to construct the building. And so, yes, you could look to achieve deeper affordability, but at the end of the day, you have to pay for the construction of the building. And so Councillor, I don't want to be arguing.
It has to get ripped apart so the rent could go up above 80%. This is why he's
You do,
taking
and
affordable
since we're
houses
handing it over
out
to the private sector,
and
you
the
also
low
need a rent
income
that's gonna
out,
generate profits
so
for
the
them,
value
correct?
of the rent could go up.
Through the chair.
Listen carefully to these guys. Listen to the words that they speak.
This is a bidding process, and we'll determine who gets it through that process.
80% of the average market rent, as outlined by CMHC, correct?
That's correct.
So which is $1,098?
Across 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms.
Yes.
So the 1 bedroom is the less, and the 3 bedrooms will be a little
Yeah.
higher.
And so then it also stipulates 30% of person's income should be going towards rent, correct? That's the kind of the maximum threshold,
That's correct.
which works out to about $549 a month.
That's correct.
Okay, and so then from there, I'm trying to understand, so we have roughly 180,000 people on rent-to-gear income across the city. So in these projects, how many people that are rent-to-gear income do you anticipate would be able to afford units in these 11 projects?
Through the chairs, but the federal national housing benefit will provide, so that could be built into this program as well to achieve rents that are lower than these. But those are income supports, and we believe this program delivers you a base initiative that will get you 10,000 housing units, 3,700 of them that are affordable, and then there's income support programs that can be layered into that.
Right, so once
There's a point where your housing program also it reaches a point where it can only deliver so much affordability, and then you need other programs, income support programs, housing benefits, housing allowances, rent supplements that then bring the rents lower. And we're anticipating that organizations that participate in this program will help do that, and also that the governments may, in the course of the next 99 years, step up and introduce programs to help people that are in deep poverty.
Okay, but sorry, I'm just trying to understand as we go forward with these 11 projects. So we don't have an absolute target of people that would be able to afford it from
So,
a rent-to-gear
Our
income.
misery employ them to make more money, revenue, turn to other agencies to get help to pay for our rent. Why can't we just easily get affordable housing? Then we won't have to worry about, hey, maybe we could buy a steak next week. Maybe we could buy fish or elf.
Mr.
Think
Lindbergh,
about our
I just
health.
wanted
We
to
have to go to a
ask,
food
these 11
bank
projects I touched on
to get fucking
an
food.
executive committee around the planning process and the zoning and that. So these 11 projects, there's also some concern around public parking, and I'm sure some residents will have issues. Have we looked at anything about being or going to get landscape architects, maybe leading design landscape architects involved in each project so they're a little more palatable to each neighborhood where they're going?
Through the speaker, design, of course, is significant policy.
So basically, if you do get one of these units, you're on the edge of the tip of the iceberg to basically lose your place as soon as you get it.
Increasingly sophisticated
People think about this
repertoire
shit,
when
eh?
it comes to our understanding of how to build a good,
And then
high-quality
he jack up at the rent for someone else. Same bullshit.
The housing office has design standards, and the city has design standards, and it has guidelines for vertical communities. And we have tools at our disposal, including the design review panel. So we will very much be mindful of the city's requirements to impose on these developments in much the same way that we would on anyone else.
So you don't think it'd be prudent to
Spirit of the principles that City Council has already adopted. I am not concerned with needing any additional instruction from City Council about keeping our eye on high quality design.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Councillor Grimes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to follow up, I guess, for Mr. Lindturn on my friend Councillor Passon's question on the infrastructure. I have a lot of faith in Toronto Water and the infrastructure there, but back to the recreation. And I got a chance to be briefed by staff on the 6 Points interchange. Councillor Fletcher did point out that the two of the sites, the 6 Point interchange, Bloor and Islington, very close together. Dundas Street being one of the growth areas. What point do we, and I know there's a recreation community center plan for that area, but what point does that all come together in these high growth areas? So I think we're going to achieve the mayor's target, probably over 30% of affordable there, but how do we make sure that there's things at the bottom of these tall buildings for the youth and the seniors, and how does that all come together? Where does that come together with staff?
Through the speaker in a couple of ways. Firstly, once that intersection is rebuilt, a number of sites will be available for development. On each site in and around that area, we've got a staff team already in place. Have been working for several years actually on
Several years they
how
already been
that
working on
area
this.
reemerge
Now it's
as,
like they're in
with more of
court.
an urban look and feel.
They have no
with
idea
bike
what to
lanes,
say.
walkable
But several
streets,
years they've been doing this
community
shit.
parks,
Several years
and
they've been
as you
stopping
noted,
people from getting
new
housing.
recreation facilities.
That's what he meant to
So all of that
say.
is part of the mix. So that's how any community requirements that come through the circulation process with all the divisions. So we look for and coordinate those opportunities on each and every site.
And so is that new, Greg? So I know you were around with the Humber Bay Shores out and they're screaming now that we didn't put the infrastructure in. I know Councilor Nunziata, she had a community center, was on the books forever. It finally got open a couple of years ago. Years. But how do we get that onto the books at an early stage? Like, staff see this growth going to happen. I'm not just talking about 6 points, wherever it's going to be. There's growth coming. We project that this growth is going to be there. We don't be waiting for the community centers. We lead them right away. But where is that planning is going to lead the charge on that?
Yes, and in fact, with council's adoption of large planning frameworks last year, you can see the evidence of council looking at growth plans, whether it be the downtown, North York Center, Scarborough Center, Etobicoke Center, Humber Bay Shores,
Okay.
Young and Eglinton, putting in place the planning frameworks, but also the infrastructure
Spanish
strategies
people
that are required to
sad.
support that growth.
Upset.
So we know,
They say
for
these people
example, if
could
you've
lie
got
to their
50,000 people coming into an area,
not care
how
about
many rec
others.
centers, how many daycares, the size of the pipes, the size of the roads, the
Sorry.
transit connections,
2020.
all of those things have
We're in
to
the
be
future. We're not
planned out
going
in advance.
backwards.